Hello, hello. Welcome to this Dallas Opera Q&A. Ask Maestro. Hello. We're waiting for Emmanuel to join in. Hola, Opera Theater St. Louis, Austin. Hello, hello. Emmanuel. Wow, a lot of people are joining in. Welcome, welcome. Just waiting on Emmanuel to join in. There it is. View. Maestro. Oh. Give me one more second, guys. Manuel? How's everybody in this COVID? Well, Emmanuel join in. I'm reading. Hello, Megan, and the Conductors Collective. Manuel? Just waiting on the line for a second. There it is.
There I am.
Hello, hello, Maestro.
Hi, everybody.
How is life? Where are you in the world? Can you tell us? To everybody?
I'm in California. I moved from California, from Dallas, about more than a week ago, and I had the chance to be in the States for more than a month. I was in Atlanta before that and in Dallas. And we decided to move to California to take care of family and to try to be, in a heaven to weather this terrible situation.
Fantastic, fantastic. So we have a few questions for this new series of Ask Maestro. So thank you for joining here. The first one that everybody is dying to know is like, what are you drinking in this quarantine?
So I am, although you cannot see it, I am on a keto diet. Yes. And so some friend of mine told me that tequila had no carbs.
I don't know which one was that.
I'm drinking a lot of water. And when it's 5 o'clock somewhere in the world, then I take a tequila. That's what's happening.
Fantastic, fantastic. Are you, now that we are like in this kind of moment of pause, where are you studying? Because I know that you're always with a score under your arm.
So that's a difficult question, because right now we don't know what to study, because we don't know when this nightmare will end. So I was actually, I am going back to my Lohengrin, because I hope by then we will be back in business. And so Lohengrin is in the opening of our season next year in Dallas. And anyway, I have to learn it again. I have to study it. In that case, if I have free time in general, I go back to my Brahms symphonies, that kind of things. And I try to anticipate work. If I have a Mahler symphony I've never done, for instance, which is for the 8th symphony, for instance, that's where I will go when I am done with the things I know I need to study. In this very unfortunate situation, there is still consolation in the sense that we can do the things that we always said. I have never time to do anything, and now you can do this intellectually. It's not easy. It depends on what your profession is, but I think it's so important to stay sane mentally, to still get occupied and train what your profession is. So if you're a singer, sing. If you are a conductor, look at scores, or do some bullshit, which is what we do all the time.
Oh, Maestro, I miss you. I miss you being
I miss
here.
you too. I
But
see you, but we talk on the phone even more. We
I
talk
have
on
to
the phone
say,
even more than we usually talk. So I feel we are more together than ever. I think your wife feels like that too, probably.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. She calls that I'm always in the war room now in the office. But anyway, for audio, the questions from our audience. So, what is well, you just gave us a little bit of advice to have
Yep.
artists during this time. Go through, like, do your normal preparation, like study time, preparation time. Um, and I guess that tequila is almost kind of an answer of handling the curveballs being thrown each day by the COVID, right?
Right, right. I think if you have any chance to exercise, I would say so. But these are, I mean, we're not expert in this, but I have the chance here, and I say that very, very respectfully to the people who are in New York, for instance, or in Paris, and who can really not move. I have the chance here in California to be able to go out, and there is an incredible irony in the fact that the air has never been so clean. And so, it's absolutely stunningly beautiful. I've been in this area now for more than 20 years, and I've never seen the ocean and the sky so beautiful. So it's like, globalization probably has made this pandemic, quicker, and maybe globalization in some way has made this pandemic possible. But there is an incredible irony that it's cleaning Earth right now.
Right.
Or we hope not for too long, but maybe there is a side lesson to learn once we can concentrate on other things than winning the fight against that nasty virus.
That's awesome. Actually, someone just texted me a great question. Um, Before and like answering Annie, I, there's a lot of these like social media challenges, right? Like the tenors are doing La Esperanza challenge. There's going one like the wall stretch challenge for ballerinas there.
Uh-huh.
Like, are you planning to send like a maestro challenge? Like,
I
let's
think
try
that
to.
my sort of challenge would be, can you shut up for a while? You know, and so I've lost that one. I think the challenge for I was just watching this morning. My friend and colleague Yannick Nozé-Séguin has been quite present online. Um, uh, Sir Papano has been online too. I think that's the only thing we can do. We sound as good as the orchestra, and we try to engage our audiences. We cannot be physically together, but we can still, talk about music, which is not as good as music itself.
Mhm.
And on the business part, because the business somehow still needs to go on, we're trying to make people aware of the challenges for the profession and how important it is to still try to weather this financially, talk to the main donors, the main people who are supporting the arts, and explain to them why we need them more than ever today. And I think, the magic of music is that it goes beyond space and time, and that's true that we can have conversation with Mozart. I mean, and it's almost not metaphorical when you say conversations with Mozart. You just really, when you go deep in those major scores, you have an approach to who this person was that is extremely intimate and close, and this is still possible. Um, so live streaming music, little performances. I think it's really very important to keep our spirits up, and from a business point of view, to show that we are still relevant and that we are preparing on the other side of that dark river once we have crossed it.
That's really really great. I think I have the pleasure to walk you through a day of performance, even if an opening premiere of a new production.
Mhm.
But and I know what you do in your day, but like, can you share a little bit to our audience how do you prepare? Because there's, of course, the typical from the singer perspective.
Mhm.
Everybody from my side of the singers, they normally try to sleep in, they try to be quiet, they try to warm
Mhm.
up the body, they eat a certain specific meals, right?
Right.
But how about in your side?
So it's very interesting. Yeah, I've prepared, David. I've prepared treats for my dog in case he starts barking.
Oh,
So
I know. There's
yeah.
I think an officer here that it's trying to say
Okay.
something. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, that's okay. So the I don't know how. I think everybody's obviously very different. I do feel for me as a conductor, the most important is obviously the mental concentration, which goes with how well you are physically. If you are jet lagged, if you are tired, if you are stressed, of course, mentally, it's going to translate. And I usually know in the morning if I will be in a good place for a performance. And usually, if I am in a good place for the performance, it's going to translate in the way I connect to the orchestra, and the feedback is going to be easier and better. And it's very rare you enter the pits thinking this is going to be a great performance, and it's not a great performance. It happens. But if you enter the pit saying, "Oh, I'm not totally there," the orchestra is going to feel this, and it's going to be harder. So in the morning, if I know I'm in a good place mentally, I do a normal day. And I just, a normal day means a crazy day, answering emails, being on the phone, sometimes even rehearsing, actually very often.
Very often.
And I go to the theater quite late. I don't like to wait in the wings or in my dressing room. I just can't.
Testify.
Nowadays, if you have, you have your phone and you start doing business on your phone in the dressing room, and it's terrible. So I really like to arrive late, not Gergiev late, but it's like really something like half an hour, 20 minutes before the show. And if that's the case, I call the manager, the stage manager. I say, "Don't worry, I will be there. I will be there 20 minutes before the show." If I feel I'm not concentrated, when I wake up the morning of a performance, then I really try to work on the mental preparation. And I arrive earlier to the theater, paradoxically, and I go in the pit just to see this is where you will have to be in an hour and a half. So you better get your act together. And just being in the pit, oh God, my body gets a shock and goes to the brain, and then I'm fine. Another thing, very simple, it works for all of us, drinking water. So if you drink enough water, you are going to be in a better place mentally, provided that you're not doing Parsifal with no breaks, because then you need to think of going to the right place in the right moment. What I have realized, though, is that I stop doing days of meetings and strenuous, confrontational, potentially dealings during the day of a performance or a concert, which has been difficult for me. For instance, when I go to Bratislava or Prague, I stay. I mean, now I'm not no more with Bratislava, but it happened. I realized that when I was a lot in Bratislava, a place I love to be, but I was there for 2 weeks in a row, and so there was a lot of administrative work to do during that time, and I would just have so many things during the day, and then the time I had already signed with Prague, the people from Prague would come, and then it was even more. And I would say, "Oh, finally, I'm on the podium, I can relax." Well, not really. That's not the place to relax. That's the place where you should be at the peak of your concentration. So that's what I do. I try to, for me, it works with my metabolism not to eat too much, funny enough. I know singers like the pasta thing, the low sugar. Well, it doesn't work really well with keto diet, does it?
Yeah.
I try not to eat too much, but during the break, I can take a little sugar, a sweet that works, or a banana. I mean, I do the banana thing. It's not.
We always have cake around for you.
Yeah. Well, stop that, please.
Anyway, we have a question from Mary Boggs. She's asking, what baton do you use? Do you prefer a long or a short one? And what material is it made out of?
Okay. So when I use a baton, I use fiberglass batons now. The baton questions has been one that it took me a lot of time to figure out. I think conducting is about knowing your body. And at one point, it's having a technique that allows your mental concentration, understanding of the score to get through to the musicians and to the singers and bam, to the audience in the back. And very often, the technical problems are just because the technique is in the way of that normal channel of going the music, having the music just project from your own mind and from the score and from this place between you and the various musicians. So I have very long arms. It took me some time to realize that long arms was getting in the way of really the clarity of the technique. And I used to have, I thought, well, you have long arms, then you need a long baton. And I finally, it took me some time to understand, well, actually, if the baton is shorter, the beat is going to be clearer. When I do a movement of half of what my arm can do, this is much bigger than a shorter conductor. I'm not going to give names. A shorter conductor does. So that shorter conductor can move a lot. So with years, I started using the baton that were done at the Met for Jimmy Levine by one of the percussionists of the Met. And I thought they were absolutely brilliant. They were actually in wood, those batons. Unfortunately, the percussionist doing this baton is not doing them anymore, and they break very easily. Mm-hmm. I am using the baton less and less. And one of my big teachers and mentor was Seiji Ozawa. And Seiji is not using the baton anymore. And I worked a lot with Seiji. And one day he told me, listen, one day you will be ready not to use the baton and you will understand how you can express yourself without the baton and how much more possibilities you have. But you're not ready for that. And the day you will be ready, you will know it. And Karajan told me that, and I'm telling you that, Dada, big moment like this. And I said, yeah, sure. For now, I'm using the baton because I'm a conductor and it looks cool with a baton. And I understood what he meant. I really understood what he meant. So in the last years, I'm not using the baton, and I feel much more freedom. When you have the baton, you are somehow obliged to describe a certain trip, a certain path between beat one and 1-2 that is not totally free. If you don't use the baton, so many things can happen between beat one and beat two. You can give inner beats that are much more subtle. And again, with the length of my arms, it works very well. If I am in the pit in a very big opera house and I have a big chorus at the end of the whole, then I might need to use a baton. But very rarely I use it.
Wow, that's very. I can tell. For example, I remember very well a moment when you did Noche di Figaro that we're gonna come back this season. It was my first season with you in 2014, and now we're opening the season in 2020 with Noche di Figaro. You always draw the baton for the duet between the Countess and Susanna. Like, if it was a particular moment that you felt because of the instrumentation heaviness, the line that you wanted to do, it was very, very clear for me.
Right. So there is always choral conducting in general is better without the baton. You will see very rarely choral conductors using the baton because the vocal line requires that constant breathing and so on. It's vocal lines is the base of any kind of music, So again, when you get to that kind of liberty with the line, it's much better. And I think that's the end of the story with the baton. But that's how I feel about it.
Wow, that's pretty interesting. About our singers with us today in the audience, and you're a music director. You are involved definitely in the casting process. What are you looking for a singer from the, I know from my casting director part what I'm looking for, but what are you looking as a music director when you are like, this is a potential singer that I'm going to need to deal in the rehearsal room and he's going to be my partner to tell the story. So what are your takes on that?
Right. It depends on the part. It depends on the stage director. I think you want it whole. I mean, it's a balance between the drama and the acting and the musical qualities. But I know very few stellar performers who are not equally versed in their musicality and their dramatic capacities.
Okay.
So, you know, if you can have a Carmen that sings well, but that is a bad actress, and you cannot have someone speaking Carmen. If I have to choose, I would rather give up a little on the vocal qualities of a Carmen if I have a really very strong performer. But other roles, it's not exactly like that. Other roles, it's about the beauty of the voice a little more than it's about the dramatic qualities. What I look in any way in a performer for my rehearsal process and for the performers is someone who is very well prepared, who has an opinion, but who is also able and willing to discuss this, question this with the stage director and with the conductor. I think the best combination for me in the workplace is a stage director that is interested in the music and a conductor that is interested in the drama.
Okay.
And I think it's the same thing with singers. I just can't work with a singer that says, "Oh yes, when I am in the performance, you will see. I mean, I will give you all the emotions." No, I'm just doing the voice, and or you know, we all know singers who are cheating because they know vocally they can't do it and they try to overact it.
Yeah.
So these balance is what is the most important for me.
Fantastic. We got another question for you. What is your favorite conducting book? Like one exercise or biographies too? Like I have seen in the office the Osawa like biography there, definitely. But do you
Right,
have?
right. There are a lot of books. You know, the Berlioz memoir in general are fascinating. You know, but they have a literary quality. Um, I I have a book in France that has a collection, it's huge, like a Bible book with all conductors talking about conducting. Um, some of it, when I read it, I was very young, and I thought, well, there's nothing for me in this. It's not interesting. And then all of a sudden, a few of the ideas that were in the book are very meaningful to me. Charles Munch has a very small book. Charles Munch, you know, was a French conductor who was in Strasbourg for a while, and then he went to Boston and was the music director of the Boston Symphony for many years. Fascinating musician, great conductor, especially in the French repertoire. And Charles Munch said one thing that comes very often to me in rehearsals or when even I'm studying a score. He says, don't ask too much in rehearsals. Really don't filter what you ask, but what you ask, you must get. And I thought this was a very simple idea that is working very hard, working very well. And it's not that easy to make that choice in rehearsals. Very often I see colleagues, or especially young colleagues, they go to rehearsal, oh, the second horn, you know, you were out of tune or you were a little late. Oh, and here, please, everybody should play piano and so on. Those things, if you know they will correct themselves in the process, why talk about them? What talk about them? Or you just look at the second horn. He has understood. Don't embarrass him. This is going to use your time to work on things that maybe people have not heard or that are not obvious to everybody. And those things, if you ask them, you have to be extremely demanding with them, and you have to make sure they happen. If you ask for a piano somewhere and it's not happening, don't let then that means credibility for any of this.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. What is your biggest like mistake that you have had in a performance? You know, like do you have a specific that
Whoa, touch wood.
dun dun
I
dun.
think one I think it's Renata Scotto who told me once the biggest professional failure and a crime is simply not being on stage. And that happened to me once. It was a premiere in a very important German theater of Bohème, and you know, qui est là? Room, and then nothing, and the Mimi supposed, you know, to start singing from backstage and slowly enter the stage. And when we arrived to that music, I just understood she wasn't there. I went slower and slower.
Lower.
I remember it started to sound like Bruckner, and I even had the time to think, well, that's interesting. You know, I'm way slower than Karajan here, and that's very, very interesting. And I had to stop at one point. I mean, there was no way I could stretch this music anyway, more minimalist harmonies than possible. And there was a silence, a dense and hard like a rock silence for maybe 40 seconds. The audience was absolutely silent. No time to be terrified. I just thinking, you know, at one point I'm going to turn and speak to the audience, but let's give it some time. And the Mimi arrived on stage. It was her debut, and she just made a little sorry. And the audience, and I was never so mad at an audience, started clapping at her. You know?
And you were
hey,
like,
you made it on stage, you know? Not sure. So I think that's the worst thing that happened. And clearly it was not my fault. But you can't help when you're on the podium always feeling guilty for whatever happens. And so that gave me a terrible, terrible, terrible feeling of, my God, what has happened? You know, this is the end of the world. And the performance, you know, went decently okay enough. That's probably my worst experience on stage. But then we have performances where, you know, the singer is not doing well, the orchestra is not concentrated, something happens, and it's very interesting how different it is from one group to the other. Some orchestras, if there is a crack or an instrument that's really not together, they concentrate and they just bring their best game. And other orchestras, they start falling apart one after the other. And that's so once if it is an orchestra, you know how to react to this. But not being on stage, yes, that's the worst thing that can happen.
No, I understand. So how you know, like we have a lot of we have a few of our heart conductors, alumni in the broadcast today with us. How, and I have heard you answer this question in their seminars or in their private lessons, but what counsel would you say to an aspiring conductor, like how to break into the business? Of course, you know, the pre-coronavirus version of the answer.
Yeah, I think it's very difficult.
I'm getting a lot of tests with questions. We have to somehow, people are not asking here, but they're asking me in my.
Yeah, they go directly to you because they're scared of. Well, maybe they're asking me, but I just don't see anything popping up. It's very difficult. It's impossible. So I would say, you know, if you have another profession, do it. And no, I'm actually serious. I think you should say the same thing to a singer. But then, of course, if you have that calling, you're going to try anyway. And I think that's the philosophy. You should say, okay, I know there is no room for me, but I'm going to make room. You have to make room. So from a business point of view, I hate to use that word, but that's kind of what your question is. You need to capitalize on the relationship you have. And you need to understand what is it that conductor who could help me needs. and how can I bring something to that conductor? And then maybe he's going to take me as his or her assistant and mentor me. You need mentors. You need to find the mentors. If you don't have any avenue to find those mentors, then you have to create opportunities on your own. You can create little orchestras or big orchestras. You know, we always try, oh my God, this orchestra, I want this orchestra to invite me and do this. Well, you can sometimes create your orchestra. And then you can have videos, you have an audience, you can train yourself, and so on and so on. It's very hard to break in. And again, maximize your relations, your relationships, the people you know. You actually know many more people than you think. Just go through your phone book and you will see you know people, or you know people who know people. And then it's about how much pressure you can exercise, apply to the people you know. And that, David, you do that in your everyday life too. You know,
Yeah.
I do that sometimes, you know, and you do that up and you do that down between quotes. And so, you know, you have to know how to deal with that. That means people skill are very important. And this is something you cannot totally import, but you can kind of work on this. I get so many people of email of people asking me for a favor and something like that. And half of them annoy me, and I can go through it, you know, the first paragraph of incredible compliments, and then could you hire me for this? And other times I probably don't see it, but it's happening. And other times I see it, but I appreciate how elegant people are with it and how genuine and authentic they are with it. So this is hard. But again, if you have that own personal craving for it, you will find the avenue and you will find a place.
Great. We have a question for Lucas, that he was one of your kids in Magic Flute.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Yeah, and yeah, he's a machine. Hi, Lucas. He asked, what is the hardest part about conducting, and what is the easiest part?
The hardest part is that it's very, at the beginning of the career at least, it's ego bruising in a brutal way that very few professionals have. Because as a conductor, you are constantly being judged, appreciated, rated by the orchestra first and foremost, the critics, obviously, the audience, the artistic directors. And what they judge is not what you do, is who you are. And this can be terribly brutal. Because as a young conductor, you are never totally yourself on the podium. It takes time. There are so many layers that needs to be taken care of before you can be really fully yourself, or at least a yourself that's working and that's acceptable. So the suffering, I mean, and I have so many of my, you know, assistants, former assistants, will call me crying after a rehearsal and absolutely, I mean, depressed, in bed, wanting to stop. And the ego bruising is part of the building. It's really, really part of what is going to make you stronger. This business is about rejection. You are being rejected constantly, and your super ego is working against you all the time. So that bruise is the hardest part. And so when something goes wrong in a performance, in a rehearsal, you feel terrible. And you still need to have that rehearsal go on, and you still need to have that performance go to the best. And maybe someone at the back of the audience is super happy with the performance, and you're going to spoil that by just being depressed and then saying, okay, in an hour it's finished, I just need to beat 1, 2, 3, 4. So that is what is working against you as a young conductor. That's the dark beast that's always there. And I go back, it's funny, I go back to the previous question about Munch. Munch said, you know, in a rehearsal, if you get a question that looks like and sounds like a testing question, which probably it is, don't take it personally. Never take anything personally. Just go back to the musical matter at stake and address it. And that is the way I go through. If I have an orchestra I've never worked with and I feel like, you know, the 5 first minutes, and it's very true, they test you, they don't like you necessarily right away, you have to go through it. Don't answer to any negative signal. Go back to the score, go back to, you know, and if you're convinced with your interpretation, even if it's not what this person has been used to do for years, that person is going to respect you for that and is going to follow you. And it works without fail. If you have that integrity in your connection to the score, you will make it in a much easier way. So the other part of the question, you know, what is the best thing and what is the best and the most rewarding? It used to be when you go out of the pit and it went away and you're done with it and you were happy and the people were clapping and so on. Now it's those magical moments where the music just happens.
Yeah.
And you don't have to do much. You just have to, I hate the metaphor, maybe surf that wave, or you let it, you just make sure people stay in that place. And the audience feels it, and you feel that the audience feels it. All the musicians know it. You don't have to do much. It's just working. And you are in communion with not only the audience, not only the musician or the stage, but with the composer. Those spiritual, magical moments are priceless. And they actually, people say, oh, it very rarely happens. It actually happens quite often. You know, in a run or two of Carmen, it happens every 2 performances. You have all of a sudden a moment where, whoa, that's good. It's roaring. It's there. And you also, what I love is if I'm conducting a butterfly, I've done, you know, 30, 40, 50 performances of butterfly, 100 performances of Carmen, and you arrive to a place and you say, oh, I've never seen that. Never heard this. There is this little second oboe doing a little thing here. I was not aware of it, or I did not understand the connection to that dramatical moment or the harmony development here. And you, oh, a new marvel in my castle and a new room I can explore. And that is very rewarding, and that's beautiful.
Fantastic. I have another question from our audience here is, what do you do when you and a singer have a disagreement on interpretation? Like, that's
a good question. I would say it very rarely happens. Very rarely happens that there is, I mean, a disagreement like a real disagreement. There is constantly questions, you know. I don't have a tempo for Irish flutes, from magic flutes. Can be very different from one singer to the other. The right tempo is a tempo that works with that voice, first and foremost, and with that staging, with that orchestra, because if you have a Baroque orchestra, if you have a classical or romantic orchestra, the phrasing is going to be different, the tempo is going to be different, with the acoustics. So I really don't arrive with preconception on tempo on any aria. In the symphonic world, I might, but again, this is going to be changed by the ability of the orchestra and the acoustics. What is very important for me is connections of tempi. So that sometimes can be problematic when you go from an aria with a singer to an ensemble or another aria with another singer. Then that correspondence of tempo, especially in Mozart, for instance, can be a little tricky, and you need to adjust. Most of the good artists, and there are a lot of good artists, they are going to really try or play along with you. They are going to say, you know, it's working, it's not working. And I think I'm one of those conductors that listen to the voice. I'm conducting a voice. I'm working with a voice. And so I feel the voice needs time here or needs to move here. You need to have breathing here, or no, just go through here. And so if the singer feels that you know that and you feel that, then he's going to be much more flexible in his tempo negotiation with you, because it is, in a way, a positive negotiation. Now, there have been times, but very, very seldom, where you have a singer who is struggling.
Holds the high note. Oh,
And,
okay. It's
well,
true.
holding the high note is okay. I mean, but, you know, I mean, especially if it's a good one. If it's not a good one, you just go down with the orchestra, and he or she has to go down. If you are in the Italian repertoire, if it's a little too long, you just blame him. But in the end, you know, you take the credit for the success of the performance. So that's okay. You can have a singer that doesn't know his part, who is very famous and who has vocal trouble, and then is going into a nasty attitude just because of that, and feels he can do this. There are less than 2 or 3 names I could give you, and it as I have worked only with one time in that situation, and there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do. But this is very exceptional, and it speaks of that person, not of you. I have worked with the most difficult singers, and I will not give names because they don't recognize
Go to
themselves as
opera
difficult
base.
singers. And I ever never have had a problem with them. I really never had a problem with them. There is some diva craziness that can going on. Oh, Maestro, I didn't understand what you did. You missed your entrance, idiot. And in that case, you say, "Oh, I'm very sorry. Let's do it again. I will be careful next time." And she knows that you know, and it's fine because in the end, you know, the divas and the divos, it's because the pressure is immense. The pressure on them is immense. If your name is Maria Callas, when you go on stage, people expect Maria Callas. And maybe Maria Callas is not Maria Callas that day. It's very hard. I mean, and so I have a great sympathy and love for those characters, and I cannot. There is not one story I had with any of these. So yes, there is one exception, and I think that exception speaks of the very person. And I still managed to have actually very good performance with that person. And every conductor will have stories like that. So I don't want to lie and say this never happens, but I would say this very seldom happens.
No, I agree. I agree. I have we are coming almost close to our
Yes.
determined time to finish,
Mm.
but I wanted to ask you a question here is that we got. It was how do you keep your sanity? You're always traveling. You're not with your family that much. You're music director of 2 organizations, and then you're what people don't know a lot of maybe a lot of them know, but you're a very involved leader in the organizations that you lead musically. Also, organization wise, you're a very not because you're in front of me, but you're a good boss. You get involved with the lives of your people. How do you keep your sanity when everybody? I feel that besides you're leading on trying to advance your own career and the organizations that you have, there's also a lot of people trying for you to be the one giving them peace or illumination to break into something. And when it's time for you, you know what? How do you keep your sanity?
Well, I don't know if I keep my sanity, David. You know,
We have a lot of scotch
yeah.
in the office.
I mean, how it is hard, and the difficulty is also when you are working with 2 organizations that are over, you know, 2 continents. Then you wake up at night worrying for one organization, and you can't help it. You go drink a glass of water, and you check your email, and then you cannot go back to sleep. So I'm sure a lot of people can relate to waking up at night and just not sleeping. That's where I get a little insane. And in that case, I just, you know, well, I'm still alive, so let's just wait till tomorrow morning. And sometimes I have to answer that email, and it's okay. You have to prioritize. We all prioritize. You have to understand the order of importance of catastrophes, and the difference between a tsunami and just high tide. You have to trust the people you're working with. And you know, you have to support them when they need your support, and they will support you when you need them. So I do believe very strongly in this, and I have a chance to working with amazing partners like you and my partners in Europe and other people. I actually somehow this can work against me. I like to take care of people and issues. I think there is something that can be very rewarding when you have results. So this is the way I can keep on going. Now with this virus, horrible thing, you don't know what the priorities are anymore. And I think our work is to try to find those priorities. The first one is to take care of your health, take care of the people around you, and in a smart way. We need, as musical organizations, to stay relevant and to really show that music, even now, has a power and a place that is not negotiable. And we need to prepare for the next step when we go out of this nightmare. So it's very hard because we're lost. We're a little lost right now, and we're trying to put things in perspective. You can. I have the chance now to maybe talk to people I've not talked in a long time. I just had Jeffrey Van Even, my friend and former agent, just Skyped me, and Jeffrey is recovering from a very, very tough illness. I mean, the people who are from business know that. And it was wonderful to see him, I mean, Jeffrey can talk very much sometimes, but it was just so inspiring. And I took the time to exchange with him, and that was beautiful. I'm optimistic, we'll get through this. And one way or the other, we'll rebuild something, and we'll be stronger. That's what I like also about the U.S. I was in the U.S. during 9/11, and the level of energy, generosity, and inspirational attitude from people was fantastic. So we'll survive, and we'll be better after this. I'm absolutely convinced. Now, the big question we all have, is it 2 months? Is it 3 months, 4 months, 5 months? We don't know, but there is no point even worrying about that now. We'll know more in 2 weeks. We'll know more in 3 weeks.
No. Emmanuel, we went a little bit over the time that your generous agenda allowed, but thank you for being like as honest and vulnerable as I know you when we have a conversation or a meeting, personable and truthful, and just dropping wise rocks here. So thank you, Lena. Like, I just want to say hi to Lena, that is there for our heart.
Yeah, Lena did a fantastic job a few days ago in Dallas when we were still opened.
Don Carlo in
kind of masterclass, and she was amazing. And as always, when you teach between quotes, you learn something. That's what I love. So thank you, Lena, for teaching me.
A special hello to everybody in our TDO family and the heart conductors that are online. And thank you for following us. We're going to come back soon with another #AskMaestro episode very soon. Please be tuning to the social media channels of the Dallas Opera, Emmanuel, Villaume, my own David Lomeli. We always are trying to bring content, especially now that we are at home. And thank you for all of your audience. Don't forget to keep supporting the Dallas Opera and keep us making music at the level that we are so proud to keep. Maestro, thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care, guys. Take care of yourself. Take care of your family. Okay. Take care of the strangers, and keep your distances.
I know, right? Take care. Have a quarantini on me today.
Okay.
Okay. Ciao.
Lots of love.
Bye. Bye, guys.